Well, I'll just start talking, and then people can walk in. I'm not.
Yeah, people totally.
I'll get to the real meat of it in about 50. That just keep people from being that. So yeah, no. So that's been my ever since from here. I walked out of here and been involved ever since in one way or another. Took me a long time, but now what you got, this source probably going to see, is that there's like 2.8 million now identified pagans, Wiccans, and spiritualists in America by the Harris report. And the numbers are really jumbled because they didn't ask, are you a pagan or a Wiccan? They just put it all under this sort of other new religious movement stuff. Some people judge there's a number called 44 creatives. And they're calling these people who have a strong interest in metaphysics, occult, or any one aspect of it. They say that now that they call them common creatives, and there's 44 million of them in America. There's 78 million people in America that read astrology every day. Sometimes one of the most popular astrology columns out there, Tribune has an astrology column. Now, everywhere you go, there's astrology columns. And everybody looks for magic in all sorts of different places. Horoscopes every day. And today's Friday the 13th. You wouldn't believe how many people that. Really hard to pronounce, but if you're afraid of Friday the 13th.
Triskaidekaphobia.
Huh?
Triskaidekaphobia.
That's fear of the number 13.
Fear of the number 13.
Friga chicha phobia. Triskaphobia is fear of Friday the 13th.
Ah.
So yes, you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an actual fear of Friday the 13th. And there's lots of reasons for Friday the 13th beliefs. People go all sorts of reasons. That 13th person at a dinner is unlucky. And Christians, it's 13th dinner guest betrayed Jesus. The biggest, most common one is the Knights Templar, which got wiped out on Friday the 13th. Their order was wiped out early 1300s. We just celebrated this 700th anniversary of their murders. And they were basically, the Knight Templars were the bankers of Europe. And the Catholic Church decided, the Pope decided they didn't like that, and wiped out a bunch of them on Friday the 13th. So that's carried forward. All sorts of different reasons. Probably just bad timing, because we're so used to working in dozens. So that 13th gets out there. Some people love Friday the 13th. This year we have 3 of them. We had last month, this month, and in November, and that happens every 11 years. Why is this important to people? Because Pythagoras said it best. The universe is numbers. The world is numbers. And one thing that people always look at in doing so is all about numbers in their lives. It's all about different ideas. And this Greek Discordian answer, 23. How many people see 23 every day?
Yeah, at least a couple of times.
A couple of times?
Yeah, at least.
1111. Anyone see those numbers?
Yeah.
1111. Okay. And these numbers may or may not actually pick up in your effect if you're receiving them. This is something that you do. So we get that. So today, Magick for the Masses. And what we mean by Magick for the Masses is magic for the everyday life. We need to find magic in the world. I believe in magic. I am not a Hollywood magician. I'm not a very good stagecraft person yet. I'm working on that. But I have a profound sense of magic in my life. I do things by feeling, by heart, sometimes by intellect, and things happen for me. And I'm very fortunate. My name is Ed Hubbard. For those who want to have formal titles, I'm actually Reverend Ed Hubbard when I have to be. It's not something that I use a lot, but I can do. If you want to get married in the state of Illinois, I can do that for you. For me, I'm called a Wiccan. I'm called, I've been a magician in my life. I've been a Wiccan. I'm a whole collection of titles, if you want to know. We all are. And so that's a big part of my life, is being a whole collection. So I'm also known as Ed the Pagan, because about 10 years ago, I had to get a 10-letter email address for AOL, and I put Ed the Pagan. And that changed into a big identity for me. I'm known on the web as that. So things happen, and magic for individuals always happens at the least expected moment. You'll hear all sorts of things. People say they have angels, and that angels walk among us, flesh and blood. And they go, oh, my friend did this for me or did that. There's all sorts of personal miracles. There's all sorts of tarot card readings that people get that are perfect, or reading the right horoscope and it gets you up there. Or just walking down the street and seeing flowers suddenly in the spring. Magic's first step is perception. Can you perceive? For a long time, people would not have accepted anything that we do in society. And the big thing they would not accept is that when you told them that we would soon be receiving messages through boxes, radios, they would not have seen it. 200 years ago, this was barely seen. The conceptions were there, the steps of it. Anything you can make it into modern society really began about 1600, and then before that, hundreds of years of thought. In those earlier years of thought, as we merged from nomadic hunters to agricultural people, we kept a sense of wonder about us. And that sense of wonder is all about things we do not understand. Magic is the art, the science of trying to understand that which we cannot understand. And everything we do begins as magic subjective. It means every idea we ever start with in life starts out as what we call magic subjective. And what I mean is that we all just think about it. We have to think about it. Everything begins as a thought. You can't begin anything without a thought.
Yeah.
That's that simple. And from thought, you think about it, and then you tell somebody, or you go out and test it. Whatever it is, and then the earliest thing, planting a seed, planting a single seed and seeing it grow, and knowing that that plant would come up from that ground. That's such a miraculous thing that that moment people consider that magic. Some people push it farther back to the first person that really understood magic was the first person who could control fire 500,000 years ago in the Mahali Mountains of South Africa. There's a fire pit 500,000 years that they were layering stuff onto it. And what it is, they had to keep it alive. So magic for them is keeping the fire alive. It's that simple. I mean, today that sounds like really difficult. That sounds really easy. We have matches, we have all sorts of fire starters, and the type of fires we control today are just huge. Nuclear fires, nuclear explosions, gas, heat. But in those first few days, they only had a few things: grass, dung, sticks, and when they first started, the first sort of thinker has to do it. So thinking has a lot to do with fire. If you don't have a fire in your mind, if you don't have a passion for something, you can't find magic in the world. So we're talking about today's luck and prosperity. Does anyone have anything that makes them feel unlucky today? Especially today, Friday the 13th. Is there anything that makes you feel unlucky? No?
Sometimes self.
What?
Sometimes self.
Sometimes self.
Having a bad day might make you feel unlucky.
Having a bad day should make you unlucky.
Well, who might make you feel unlucky?
And what happens if you perceive that at a certain time, at a certain place, and something always happens to you? Even if it doesn't happen to you all the time, if you can perceive it, that's what becomes what they call unlucky. If there's a crack in the sidewalk, say that there's a 1/4 inch crack in the sidewalk, you walk past it every day, most of the time, you're going to pass it up. Hi, good. So you have this 1/4 crack in the sidewalk, you walk it down every day. Most of the time, you're going to do what? Pass it up. But then you're going to kick it every once in a while. It's just there by random luck, because you don't place your feet exactly in the same space. We don't pay attention that much. You hit it. You take a tumble. Next thing you go into your work, you're feeling that. You snap off a witty comment to somebody. They take an offense to it. All of a sudden, your day is gone with that. It started with a crack in the sidewalk. It doesn't happen for a while. It doesn't happen for a while. Boom, you hit that sidewalk. And then you start to perceive, if you've done this enough times, you go back and already in your mind, you have to decide at that moment if this is just a coincidence, because you're not paying attention, or the minute you hit that crack, second, third, or fourth time, you have to ask yourself, what's going to happen next? And a lot of us instinctively will go back to what happened the last couple of times. And if there's any sort of negativity produced, then you're going to find yourself, oh my gosh, something bad's going to happen. And then you go into this with anticipation. Anticipation, perception, anything that goes wrong at that point becomes part of the crack in the sidewalk curse. You carry it around for a while. You change the direction you go. You don't even think about it. And then somebody else comes by and says, man, I just stuffed up my knees from that sidewalk crack down the street. Yep, this is what happened to me. Really, this is what happened to me. Now it becomes a phenomenon. And more people share in this sort of perception that there's that crack in the sidewalk. And then one day the city repairs it. Goes smooth. There's no more crack. Somebody trips in that section of the sidewalk. They come in here and they go, oh my gosh, I don't know why you felt that time, but there used to be a crack there that used to get everybody. And if you got hit by it, it was a bad day. Well, it must have hit it. And now it becomes a ghost. A ghost curse. And then on it continues. And it becomes part of something they call a meme. M-E-M-E. Short thoughts expressed with very few words, but takes you into a state. Most curses, unluckiness, is a state. It is something that you enter into and you continue to act in a way to attract negativity. And one of the things that creates them is called memes. M-E-M-E. And so you pursue it. You can see memes all the time. It's one of the biggest advertising things in the world. Just do it. Nike. Coke or Pepsi. When you hear the word Coke, you get this sort of idea of Coke. Pepsi. There are certain foods that might get you adrenaline going. Perceptions. And so that's what a meme is, and that's what happens with that. Friday the 13th has become one of the larger memes. 13 has become this idea of what we believe is lucky and unlucky. And so if I sound like magic comes from the mind, it starts deep inside the mind. It's a matter of what you do and can believe. People didn't believe in steam engines. People didn't believe in radios. They didn't believe in all sorts of different things. Then you can go on and on. We know that because we live in a time of an infinite amount of change. So, rabbit's feet. People carry them. They become lucky. They go to the casino in Las Vegas. The casino is Las Vegas is one of the most superstitious places in the world. And if a girl is standing next to you in a red dress and you win a bunch of money, your mind says, ooh, do so. The girl walks away, you suddenly lose a bunch of money. The girl in the red dress is lucky. Hey, come on over here, let me buy you some drinks. You win some more money. Great. Girl walks off, you lose money, you become convinced. The next 10 years later, your wife has to dress up in a red dress and stand next to you when you go play poker in Las Vegas.
As long as you win.
As long as you win. And if he gets that, the person will pay more attention. Because when you believe in a good luck charm, and you have it there, you feel comfortable to pay attention. And therefore, that person may actually play better poker because they feel secure. You may not have anything to do with that. So I keep talking away these ideas of magic, but magic is what we focus on and how things happen together. And so we get these ideas of lucky charms. Prosperity. Prosperity is one of those things that I'm taught, is what we came here in Magick for the Masses for, is something that we perceive together. What's prosperous to one person is barely enough for another. And that becomes weak because we have this very single thing in our lives. It's called wealth. Wealth, for the simplest of terms, is the ability to fulfill your needs and desires. Truly wealthy people fulfill all their needs and desires. It could be a farmer who just has a couple of chickens, a couple of horses, and brings enough food in every year, and they can feel truly wealthy. Wealth can be, for some people, driving expensive cars makes them feel rich. Rich is not necessarily wealthy. Wealthy is a certain contentment and satisfaction from fulfilling your needs. Prosperity can lead to riches and to wealth. Now, a lot of people who are truly wealthy in our society are also truly rich. Rich is a money term. And when the thing is, anybody, they say, you hear it all the time, anybody can be rich. If that were true, why is not everybody rich? I don't know how many people tell me that I could not do tons of things I've done. And they could say because you're not rich enough or you're not wealthy enough. But I don't. That's kind of silly because I found a way in my life to do so. And for me, it was a belief in magic. I started believing in magic. Kindled at a young age, left it, came back. 28 years old, I started really practicing. Today, I run the world's largest website for witches. I have a whole lot of people believing in magic. A whole lot of people who believe in the idea that things can change. Ultimately, what people call magic is to have your environment change according to your will. Keep it really simple. You know, we can give you lots of other fancy names. It can be all about moving energy. It can be about casting spells. But ultimately, magic, for our purposes, is to change the environment by the power of your will. And so how do we do that? You change the environment by the power of will by simply making things happen. And since everything starts as a thought, the first step of magic is thinking. You don't think, you can't create anything magical. You have to at least have a spark, fire, energy. So, if I wanted to change the will, change my environment right now, I could do something. Can you do me a favor? Could you move to that chair?
Usually.
Okay. Thank you. And you can move back if you'd like, or you can stay there as you please.
That's an example of magic.
That's an example. I've gotten my will. Thank you. Yes, to change the environment in which it is. Okay. Now, what I didn't change today I never put out an advance call. This is my first time coming back to Chicago in years. And so from my perception, I'm glad I had 7 people listening to my class. You know, we could always say what we wanted. Did I want a whole room of people? Probably that would have been cool. Am I glad I have what I have? Absolutely. If I would have had one person, I would have been okay. For me, the act of just teaching this class is always important to me. Now, for Lavelle, probably having more people would probably be something that he would like to see. And so next month, that's what they want to work on. Change that perception. Because next month I'm going to talk about love and lust. But today I'm talking particularly about prosperity and love. So, what do you guys do to make yourselves feel lucky? Anybody? Go ahead.
Come here.
Come here. And before we started the class, we were talking about your seat, your spot. And one of the most important things in a life of somebody who wants to learn to cast magic is to find their spot. Or to find their place. And finding a place means finding some area that you can feel like you're strong, you're protected, or whatever it is that makes you feel like you can relax your mind. Because all day long, your mind is in the grip of energies that you can barely perceive. There are people out there today that want to take over your mind enough so that they can have something called mind share. Advertisers say, we want part of your mind. They want to put an impression into your mind to buy a product, or to commit an act, or do a service. The most common people who do this is, of course, every 2 years actually, we have elections. And you have all these people yelling at you to get you to make a decision towards voting for them. Coke, we all know they want you to drink more Coke. Pepsi wants you to drink more Pepsi. 7-Up wants you to drink theirs. And, yeah, come on. And you have all sorts of people who also then want you to drink water. And then all different types of water. You know, there's life water, you know, there's also. People spent millions of dollars to try to convince you to this. And you have television shows, all fighting for your attention. On top of that, you have noise, running back and forth. You have cars, people, telephones. And increasingly, we carry our telephones with us. buses, cars. In here, if you look around, there's thousands of things to try to get your attention. Everybody's fighting for your mind. First rule of magician is know thyself. Because there are people who want you to act in a way that's like everybody else. They want you to use your credit card to go out and spend large amounts of money. And if you don't have the right credit card, you're going to be envisioning, and it gets you to visualize that barbarians are going to come through your door. I was with somebody who says, boy, I'm glad I have Capital One. And they said, I'm glad I have a Capital One. He goes, why? I said, so those barbarians don't come and rob me. It had gotten to his mind that much that, that he was using his Capital One and kept making a joke about barbarians. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, good for you. You're not watching enough television, but good. But I think everybody seemed kind of light up there. And that's one of the ways they're trying to battle for your mind. Magic is about taking back control of your mind and using it for yourself. And the question that you have is perception. And everywhere you go into life, so the first thing you have to do is know thyself. And that's really, I'm going to tell you, it's really, really hard. And it's really, really simple. The question is before you do an action, you ask yourself, why? What does this have to do with prosperity? Prosperity comes from using surpluses. Where did the first surplus ever come from? Somewhere, about 10 million years ago, probably in Turkey, where they're trying to put it now, a person, probably a woman, planted a seed, watched over it, and got food from it. And this was the first time we were able to then say, wow, we have a surplus of food from where we were before, versus going out and hunting it and gathering it. Agriculture. Agriculture began to create the first surplus food so that me and you both wouldn't have to go hunting and gathering. You, if you were good at making arrows, could finally relax because I can grow enough food to feed both of us. You make better arrows, we get better meat. And with that became all of sort of an ideology of miracles, growth. I mean, come on, that's kind of interesting, kind of hard to believe. It's like, you're standing around there and says, I'm growing my own food. And imagine that nobody understood you. That absolutely no one understood you, or only a few people understood you. And you started doing it, and then all of a sudden you started to grow food, and you are putting on a pound or two. That was not the easiest thing in the world. It is today. Today we fight against it, but back then it wasn't. And all of a sudden you had this extra food. More children, more people doing tasks, teaching it on, prosperity. Then, of course, then you have the formation of bandits. Bandits to government, they're the same thing. They take a portion of everything to protect you from the outside. First idea of the tribe. Who will protect you? Well, you grow that. Who we're protecting you from? Well, first us, and then everybody else. And our society, as we know it, grew out of that. In that process, there are all sorts of unexplainable things. Magicians were the first, magicians were the first people to test ideas. And for this, if they were successful, you usually got rewarded for it. And if they were wrong, they were usually killed. Very great process. You were right, and you can convince people you were right. As a thinker, you survived. And if you didn't, you died. Why? Because nobody liked, everybody trusted you, because you were speaking for God. Early magicians were speaking for the gods. So we had that. And when they got it right, there was more prosperity. So they learned to observe things. You observe it. And when you observe things, you spend and find perceptions. I talked about 1111. And how many people have seen 1111 number around? You did. You did. Do you know where that comes from? Actually, the 1111 number system is fairly recent in history. It comes from something called the harmonic convergence. 8/16/17, 1988. Prior to that, it was a little bit of discussion, and you find books with it. It was in some angel books. It's pretty obscure before that. The idea that this matching numbers, 11 master builder number, 11 another master builder number, bring them together as a double master building. It is supposed to be the way the world changes, is when these numbers show up. We're going to bring the harmonic convergence to the highest level. Our DNA is going to alter. We're going to have new threads of DNA. And everybody said this on this sort of harmonic convergence. And when the harmonic convergence happened, it changed the way people did little rituals and dancing, and it kind of raised the energy and changed the world. And one of the markings that they did is that they said they would get 1111 would be now the key number to proceed for everybody. And the next big one is 111111, November 11, 2011. People see that. People just did it recently for 111, so they get together again. But these numbers now become part of it, and becomes part of an angelic language, and it becomes embedded in our memes. And even if we don't know why, it starts to spread out. And every time you mention it to somebody else, they begin to perceive this. 1111 doesn't show up any more times than 1112 or 1113, except that your mind says 11 is a lucky number. You pay attention to it. 11 is when they have 11 on the daily, the sort of the daily lottery. 11s are picked no more than other numbers, but people pick them more than any other number, followed by 7s. 37, 27, but people pick these all up. So, but they're not any more common than other numbers in a purely random world. So they got this perception of it. 23 is the Discordian number. Almighty Discordia, or Hail Eris. It's also the number 5. It's the number of the pentagram. So they put this together. Your birthday is a special number for you. And people are either going to feel terrific on their birthday or terrible on their birthday, depending on where they perceive it. Some people have I've met people who've had really bad luck on their birthdays. New Year's Eve babies have terrible luck because they get snowed out, they get all sorts of things, and they don't get the same presents. Oh, last week we got your presents at Christmas. Those are my Christmas presents. I actually met people who have New Year's Eve babies, and they always whine about how unlucky a birthday it is. And behind it, sometimes you find out that the parents just wanted the tax deduction that year. Whereas I've seen people who have a 1-1 birthday, they really like it because everybody goes out and parties that night. And they may actually get presents. But a lot of people are celebrating their birthday with them, so they feel lucky. 12/31, I've seen people that feel very unlucky, and 1/1 feel very lucky. So we find these numbers. Do you guys, any of you, have any lucky numbers of your own? Go ahead.
5.
5? And do you know why?
No.
Well, that's a number of stability. The idea of anything that's got 5 is stability. So in sort of this idea, so when you see the number 5, you feel lucky. And how often does things happen around that you feel that are lucky to happen around 5?
I don't know about that, but it appears in like my driver's license and my social security number and my credit card number, and so I just, if I have something that doesn't have a 5 in it, it makes me nervous.
See?
Yeah.
Okay. What?
3s and 6s.
3s and 6s. Okay. Well, 3 is half of 6, so in what way do they show up? Do they feel for you?
Well, when I'm with 3 people, usually good things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm in a group of 6.
And right now, on the table, you're in a group of 6. Right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh? Oh, he's gone. The minute you mentioned it, 6. And you're right, it was just 7 a minute ago, but when you mentioned you're 6, you're in a group of 6. So this must be pretty lucky for you. So, good. Anyone else? No? Okay. So these are ways that people do it. Let me offer you a way of utilizing this to your advantage. First step to prosperity is knowing that you want something or you need something. If you cannot admit that you want or need, forget it. This is a useless exercise. If you're a Buddhist and you've truly come down to the point where you don't need any material loss, and this is their goal, they live their lives and they have a different type of magic. That's what's called the flow. And now we're 7 again. Oh, no. Assumptions. That you put out there. So we're going to teach you one of the things you can do with your own prosperity is to put out mounts. How many people do you think you're going to be rich in your lifetime?
Define rich.
Rich is money.
Money.
Okay, rich for us, for my purposes, is money. Having enough money to be rich is having enough money to do what you want at the moment that you want to do it. Okay? If I want to go get on a car, you know, that sort of thing. You know, that's rich.
Okay.
I want to buy a Bugatti.
You want to buy a Bugatti? That would make you feel rich.
I would try it.
It's just having enough money to do what you want.
Having enough money to do what you want without having...
When
Without having to haggle.
Hmm?
Without having to haggle.
Without having to haggle, you know, go in there. That's rich. Wealthy is having everything that you need to fill your needs and wants. Gandhi always said he was a wealthy man. And people would ask him where his richness is. And the richness is in my heart and my relationships. Most people pursue richness in lieu of wealth. I want to be rich, but I also want to be wealthy. In a lot of ways, I feel wealthy. I pretty much do day to day what I want to do against what I can do.
Big difference.
There's a huge difference in that. And every day I try to figure out ways where I can do more. Can I teach a class at the Occult Bookstore? This was an idea about a month ago. And I typed an email. Thought to action and permission. And I got permission, I'm here today. That act for me. That action for me was one that's fulfillment. And now what I want to do is go from this to next month, having more people, talk about love and lust, that's one of my favorites, onward. So basically, for me, back to things. Charge a nominal fee, not really worried about that. Just want to get my chops going, get my teaching chops going, get myself energetic, getting people back to learning these sort of things. Here's what you can do. It is never wrong to talk about money. If you've got a boss and you want a raise, the number one thing people stop to do is not to ask. But now I'll teach you what they call, what's called a simple memory trick, simple putting out in there. Not only decide how much you want, but stop dropping that number into conversations, not indirectly. If you're making, let's just say $9 an hour, and you want to go to 11, right? You start mentioning 2 weeks ahead of time, wow, there's 11 staples in this booklet. There are 11 people in the waiting room for you. Right? He says, oh, that's very nice today. Where'd you buy that? Isn't that over by 11th Street? And you start putting it into their perception, and every time you did it, and then you add another word, good. 11, good. And you slowly but surely do it. And you say, well, isn't this a good thing? You know, it says like that. Wow, did you notice there was 11 little birdies on your tie? It doesn't matter what it is because you put that in there. Now you have to be bold. Not only issues know themselves, but they are bold. Be bold. And they also be silent. And you don't ever want to come right out and do something because the people aren't going to accept it. And then you go in there, you get your review, you know the review is, and he says, oh yeah, da-da-da. So I want to talk about a raise. And he goes, well, we can't really give a raise. But raises, you know, but I've been good. Haven't I? So well, what are you looking at? Well, I'm looking at 11. It's called MEMS. He's now got a mem that says, attached to you with the number 11. And so now, it comes down to the moment, you wouldn't be surprised how many people will then go, well, I agree with 11. 11's good. Thank you. Because one of the things that a magician knows is the world repeats back to them what they say to the world.
That's true. Very true.
And so, the beginning of your prosperity is the beginning of the way you speak. Your words have power. So yeah, that's a great way, and it works. Because you come right at them and they go, if you just decide you want $11 an hour, and they go, no one else makes that. And I hope you're asking for a hell of a lot more than that. But I use that as an example because it's a fun example for me.
It's like almost you're building association
Mm-hmm.
with that person. You're predestining yourself in that person. That association is just like, as soon as they think of you and you say the key words, you bring that thought forward in their mind. And that's magic.
That's magic.
It's beautiful.
Now, I throw pennies in lucky wells. I believe in something called the threefold law. I believe in all sorts of these sort of little rules. But the most important rule I believe in is I believe in myself. I know myself and I believe in myself. I believe in what I can do. I'm also not so silly to think that I can do anything. Certainly, I'm not a very good basketball player. I've tried. I'm not very good at it. But if I decided I wanted to be good at it, I could be good at it, whatever that is. And at any time, I can change my mind. Again, I talk about all sorts of labels. Lately, I've become a cupcake maker. Me and Marianne have become cupcake makers. And people are telling us that we should take our passion. People have said, you should do this all the time. And we're even thinking about it. But we did cupcakes just for the fun of it. We made what was gruesomely awful red velvet cupcakes. Cream cheese, butter, oil, 1,600 calories of what are these things?
Did you bring enough for everybody?
Yeah.
No, we did not bring any this time. No,
That sounds
next time we
awesome.
will. Next time we'll bring cupcakes. And we brought this, everybody loved those cupcakes. And we've been doing more. And so people are saying how good our cupcakes are. It makes us perceive them. We try harder. And we bring out some more cupcakes that everybody seems to love. It's hard not to love cupcakes. Now in this world of where we go, there's a sort of meme out there that we make good cupcakes. How many people have gone to a communion that had two comedians to do the exact same jokes? One's funny, one's not. One's famous, one's not. There's association. So if we become good enough with cupcakes, we might turn into Ace of Cakes, Duff Cakes, who now get $3,000 for a cake they used to get $500 for, that they used to get $150 for. Yes, I've been asked. I've gone to that website because I thought it would be prosperous to have a big cake from him. $3,000, $100 down before he even talks to you. When you go in for the tasting, he wants $1,000 down and 2 years waiting list. And you may not have more than the cake. But it doesn't matter, it's a duff cake. We have to have it. And if you have a duff cake in your party, you've made it. Perception of it. Is any of that true? Could not a local baker do a better job? Is there not local bakers who do better jobs all the time? What makes a duff cake better than an exceptional cake from a baker that may cost 1/10 of that?
Association.
Association. Duff cake, you have to be rich to afford it. This other one, you just have to be well enough to buy it, so it doesn't have the same sort of prestige. People put items to prestige all the time. Cheapest jewelry in the world, haunted jewelry. Gets the highest amounts on eBay. I've seen $20 rings go for $200. I've seen $40 pocket watches go for $4,000 because these people write a story about how it is haunted. Now, do I believe that those items are haunted? I believe there are a few items that are haunted. But somebody who lists haunted items every week by going to estate sales must know the Ghostbusters.
Truly gifted.
Needful things.
Needful things. Not that I don't believe there are haunted items. Because the minute these people get those rings, they just put, when you spend $200 on a $20 ring, and everybody goes, why did you spend that money? Well, it's haunted. And at that moment, their perception changes. And anything that happens around them that's a little bit spooky, they'll jump at it. Try it for somebody. And one of the biggest things you can do to people that says, don't trip, they trip. Try not thinking of the number 3.
Too late.
Too late. Magicians use these words all the time. And one of the biggest things, like I said, today is Friday the 13th. I put on it, but there are a lot of associations with Friday the 13th that have continued at. Friday the 13th is Freddy Krueger's night. But what if I told you something completely different? Let me tell you, what if this were the first annual Pluto Recognition Day of Illinois? And every March 13th from here on out, we're going to be the only state in the Union, the only state in the whole world that says that Pluto is a planet. And it's going to be taught in our school that Pluto is a planet. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? Congratulations, we are now living in a ridiculous age because this is absolutely true. I don't make this stuff up. On 2/26/09, the Illinois Senate and House passed a bill making this officially Pluto Day. And that the state of Illinois recognizes Pluto as a planet. Now, it's an interesting planet. I mean, for a long time it was that. Because they think that these scientists have gotten it wrong. And because it is a planet, it's because the discoverers in Streator, Illinois, was born there, raised. And so this is why we have to have it. Because otherwise they're just lowering his recognition. Why did they pick Friday the 13th to be the first one? I don't know. But does that change the day? Because they have said it, does that make Pluto a planet? Well,
A lot of people.
No.
yes, and no.
I know.
You have to, it's something that a magician's learning. It's called the dividing argument. So we've talked a little bit about memes, how these thoughts get into your mind. One of the ways that a mem gets into your mind, that you start to believe one way or another, it's lucky or it's unlucky, is called the dividing argument. Illinois took a dividing argument and decided that Pluto is important, that it's a planet. And if they teach our kids in school that it's a planet, then we're going to believe in Illinois, we're going to accept it as a planet. And anyone from Illinois will be able to say, oh, in the future it'll be a planet. Other states might join us. There might be a general Pluto rebellion. Wouldn't that be an interesting thing? It is.
It would.
Right? Right there, the evolution and creation. But it's that moment. And somebody else might try this in another state. Let's say Indiana decides, well, we aren't going to do this, we're going to join Illinois in this. And they begin to vote for it. A dividing argument. Whenever you're faced with sort of a prosperity choice, or any sort of money choice, or any sort of choice in your life, you come sometimes to a dividing argument. Controlling dividing arguments on your behalf is how you start to build prosperity. What do I mean? Well, if I were a little faster on my feet, I'd have t-shirts today that says, I'm from Chicago and Pluto's a planet. And I'd sell some of those. And I'd have a little bit more money and I'd have a good chuckle. So, just out of curiosity, how many people here do feel Pluto's a planet? Okay, Mary, yeah, she's that's okay. And that's because you were taught that in school.
That's what I was taught in school.
And I like it too. I prefer to be a planet myself. And so these scientists have this sort of perception problem. They tried it, now they're going to get backlash, and we're going to have years from now, decades from now. But what does it do for Pluto? Not only does it divide the argument, but for astrologers, this was a catastrophic event. Of not being able to include Pluto in their astrology charts as a planet, because people are going to question it, changes the way that they read it. Aquarius, I think, what astrology signs combined to it? Do you know? Is it Aquarius?
For Pluto?
Yeah.
Scorpio is what they gave Pluto to.
So they just try to tell all Scorpios that their planet no longer matters.
Damn it. Back to Mars.
Back to Mars. But that's a perception change. If people don't accept Pluto as a planet, then it goes back to Mars. And Uranus, that's, because Uranus, Aquarius used to be Saturn to Uranus. These things change over time, perceptions. So if you want to get in control of the dividing question, how do you get a hold of the dividing question? What a dividing question does is a decision at a time and a moment that something has to happen. You have to make a decision. A good example is, do I still sit here and listen to this guy rant and rave? For that sort of thing. Or do I go out and do something else? Do I go out, what do I do after this? Do I go home or do I go to a bar? Do we, all sorts of these choices that you make. And when you start to control those dividing choices, especially other people's dividing choices to you, then you get to change things. If you're a politician, it's called a vote. If you are a celebrity, it's getting people to pay attention to you and buy your record, or your TV show, or your cassette over somebody else's. If it is a job, do you get that promotion or somebody else? The earlier you can see the dividing question, the earlier you can start placing thoughts out there that you want it. Because the first thing about magic is it's a fire in the mind. And that fire in the mind is conveyed by thought. And thought becomes words. Hopefully soon telepathy will become telepathy. At least that's my hope. But right now we have to use words to convey it. And we're getting better. We're becoming better because we're starting to use more and more visuals. We are having a visual language. But that's important, but not the thing. So we start speaking our mind. And then if you get other people to hear you, and agree with you, and act in conjunction with you, you can change anything. I love Derek Brown. He's a mentalist who gets people to hand them their wallets all the time. He just goes up to them, talks to them for a few minutes, and says, hand me your wallet. And the people hand their wallet and says, walk off. And people do it. I haven't got that level of skill. I haven't even tried to, but I love watching him do it. And you have to ask yourself, is he really doing it or a stage trick? You know, when you see it on TV. So what happens? When he comes to town, you have to see a show. You have to see it close up. And so this is a way that you reaffirm yourself. And eventually you find out that he really does do it. And that people, he can only do it to a very small percentage of society, but he does do it because certain people are just programmed to just act. One of the things a magician does, prosperity does, is that you get people to act on your behalf. We already talked about planting a number before a boss to get them comfortable. The biggest power to a person magician is how you speak of yourself. How many people here say that they're wonderful? You can't, it's okay to say you're wonderful. You're all wonderful. We're all unique. And everybody here should say they're wonderful. Say you're wonderful. I'm wonderful.
I'm wonderful.
Good. How many times a day do you go and say something like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. That was so stupid.
More times than I'm wonderful.
Okay, that's easy. The negative is easy. The positive is hard. Part of it's because you've been programmed to take the negative with you all day. After all, how can we make it through our day not having a headache unless we have Advil on our desk? How could we, how could we possibly get through the day without anything? And then, damn, Miller time afterward is great. That's going to make me feel so much better no matter how bad the day is. There's a sort of battle to make things feel negative in the world towards positive. I have no doubt in the mind that our economy is going to survive. Anyone else feel differently? It's okay, you can. I also believe that Obama is playing the trickster right now. He's been saying how bad it is, how bad it is. And today he said, times are never as good as we think they are, or never as bad as they at first appear. The economy wasn't as good as it was 2 years ago, but it's not as bad as everybody thinks it is right now. He's programming the country. He's programming everybody to say, oh, okay, start spending again. It's not that bad. Regardless of what the truth is, and I'm not enough of an economist to tell you that. My son warned me to get out of the stock market about 9 months ago. He studies this thing. He got out. But you would think that if, because of that, everybody would go, oh, yeah, well, you think well of that. You thought that through. They don't do that to him. They go, how'd you know that? And they want to know that he has a system. He wants to have magical tricks that he couldn't have possibly done. All he did is he studied markets, made a guess, and he was right. He studied a lot of different things, and he studied. Magic often looks like things that you study intensely, and you do them with easily. Suddenly becomes magic to other people. So we'll get back to the dividing argument. I know I've gone all over the place, but what you have to do is start looking for your dividing arguments. Things that in your life that are divided, that people make choices about, and get people to deal with you for prosperity. When you're a waitress, you've got to get the people to like you as quickly as they can and know that they can trust you in order to get a tip. I teach waitresses all the time. Tell them how much of a tip you want right up front. It says, and what do they mean? It says, I'm going to hopefully give you good service for the day. It says, I'm going to get you whatever you like, whatever you want, just feel free to ask for me. It says, after all, I want to earn your tip. And they go, da-da-da, and says, wow, you're drinking quite a bit. He says, oh, my tip's going to be pretty good today. And more people have not. And they slip it in there in friendly banter. Not just coming right out. He goes, well, here's another drink for you. Do you need another drink, sir? Nope. Okay. And slowly so they include the idea of the word tip in their thing in very subtle ways, and they get better tips for it. They've asked for it. So the point of it is, so in order to have it magic work for you, you have to have fire in the brain, be able to think something that you want or desire or need, or somebody else needs. But it'd be good in that. Use words and start speaking what you want. The universe listens. Do you believe in an intelligent universe? If you believe the universe is intelligent, then it's just a matter of asking the universe to respond in an intelligent way. If you think the universe is dumb, without any sort of chaos, then you're an Orisian. Or Hail Eris, but you also believe that nothing really matters. People who don't think that there's a connection between things have the most bad luck because they have the most number of disassociations between their actions and what they do. The person who trips on the sidewalk every day, right, doesn't pick their feet up when they should know that there's a crack in the sidewalk. They pass it every day. They'd rather make themselves feel better with the idea of creating a curse. They don't have to take responsibility for their actions. Disassociation from your life makes it so like if you know every day the train bus leaves at 8:05, controlling yourself, making your life work is know thyself and get out of there by 8:05. But the person who goes, oh, I missed the bus again, I was right there. You can look at their behavior of not leaving when 8:05 would have done a good job. You know, we'll get there by 8:05. They play a game.
I do it every morning.
Okay.
Every morning.
And do you feel lucky or unlucky when you miss that bus?
I do it. I get in my car at a certain time, knowing that if I get in my car at a certain time, I will be at work at the right time. And I do it every single morning. I set my clock for 4:45, and I know if I get up at 10 minutes earlier, then I would have such a more peaceful drive. Now I changed that, and yes, everything has changed.
And you feel better about going into it?
I feel better about going to work 10 times
Okay.
because I know I'm not in the rush. But it took me this long to realize, hey, I need to quit playing around and just take the time.
Know thyself,
Know
know the
thyself.
circumstances, change your luck. Prosperity is about, and you get to work, you feel better.
I actually have time to like absorb myself into work. Like, hey, I'm at work. Okay, it's not bad. I only have 8 hours to do here. I'm good. Before it's like time clocking in right on the machine or something. It's like, oh, this is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And now that 5-minute window has given me so much more peace. Productivity.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it is. You changed your behavior, changed your associations, thought your way through, better life. People who are successful think more through the consequences. We're going to take a break here in a minute. And basically there's a concept called pay forward. If you want prosperity in your life, pay things forward.
It comes back.
What in the heck am I talking about? I see blank faces.
Yeah, it's a bumper sticker.
Huh?
Bumper sticker.
It's a movie.
It's a bumper sticker.
It's
Okay.
a movie.
It's a movie.
I don't
Well,
know.
what does it really mean? Pay forward is what every investor does. This is the first step to any sort of success. An investor raises money, gets a pile of money, and they go into a building and they go, and Lavelle just did this a while ago, a couple of years ago, get their money together and pay it forward, meaning they buy a space and they transform it. They spend a lot of money forward, and they hopefully will get it back by having business. Paying forward can be investing in a charity that you feel good. You know, you want to do something that this charity is going to do well, with the intention of that the charity will do well, that you'll feel better about it. But more specifically, paying forward is being willing to do sort of being a good guy or being a good girl in the sense of trying to do things for people before they even realize they need it. or even if they do realize it, you're doing this. And for the Wiccans, it's the idea of threefold law. What you do returns to you threefold, for good or for will. People who do sort of pay forward concepts take away part of the dividing argument when people start to see them. Oh, this person's done a good thing. And I'm going to be honest, part of magic is about understanding how the real selfish attitudes in life work. People move not just from goodwill, but from selfish reasons. And pay forward is not that much different, except by motivation, if it's a thing that you do for good or for ill. But if you gossip about somebody, you're paying forward future gossip about yourself. If somebody's gossiping to you about someone else, you know that person's going to gossip about you.
What goes around comes around.
What goes around comes around. Now for me, when anyone gossips about me, I have a great statement, because all rumors about me are true, regardless of the facts. Whatever it is, fine, I did it. Storms off the off Seattle coastline to ruin a picnic. I take credit for that. They blame me for that. Someone blamed me for a power outage in New York one time. I get all sorts of weird little claims about, when I get mad. I've blown out TVs because the TV popped one time and I got mad. I yelled and all of a sudden the TV popped. Did I do that? Everybody around me perceived that I did it. They said that my anger caused a storm. They even came up with explanations. I won't. Yeah. I will say my reputation's had a better time in life than me. Hi, my name is Ed Hubbard. I'm your happy-go-lucky teacher tonight. Today we're going to talk about this is part of my series called Magick For The Masses. What I mean by that is just magic people can use for everyday life. It's just stuff and sort of thing. Just a little bit of background about myself. I am founder of one of the founders of a school called Witch School, which is an online school that teaches people all over the world about magic and Wiccans and all sorts of different things. I don't take myself overly seriously. I don't think any of you should take me overly seriously either. Take everything. I always warn people that you have to make up your own mind about everything, including what I have to say. Having said that, I'm going to give you the best information that I can. Feel free to just, ask questions. I'm very informal in this aspect. I'm not like one of these, wait until the time. I want you to go ahead and just ask questions as you want to. And we'll begin. Today's Magick For The Masses is love and lust. Love and lust are the two most powerful elements in America today. Everybody loves love. And how dare I speak even about something that has over 1.2 million different definitions in the world. There's all sorts of flavors of love. We always talk about it. You always hear about different flavors of love. And people go, oh, that's a big subject. But love ultimately, in the world of magic, means just being able to have a feeling of giving to another person. And that means giving. It means giving unlimitedly. You hear the term unconditional love, the love. Well, what in the heck does that mean? Well, unconditional love is one of those little fantasies that we all live with, meaning that we don't have conditions to our love. That we give it so freely to people that we don't expect anything back. Okay, that would be like opening your wallet and letting anyone take money out of it and never expecting to see anything for it. It sounds cool, but at the end of the day, that idea comes out and people get resentful of it. So it's obviously not just giving of yourself so much that you never get anything back. Unconditional love, at least for our definition tonight, is the type of love that you give out without preconceptions, without rules, and that you then get something back. Meaning, when you enter into sort of the idea of love, the more rules you have, the harder it is to get to love. It means like if you think that you have to be, I have a friend, 42 years old, who barely dates because he has these very tight rules of who he could possibly love. It has to be a redhead. It has to be a Jewish redheaded girl. Very difficult to find. And I literally mean this. And then anything else doesn't seem to live up to his standards. And it doesn't live up to his standards. So he doesn't have an inkling of what unconditional love is. And today he's still a bachelor. And yet he talks about, oh, I want to get married and have kids. That's these sort of things. So if you set up a lot of preconditions to what love is, then you're going to find it harder to find love. So that's what we talk about unconditional love. It's kind of setting up not the conditions of love, but you have to ask you what you want in love. Now, lust. Lust is a whole different question, and lust is the biggest motivator today in America. Lust is everywhere. Lust is in our commercials. Why do we put bikini-clad girls in front of a car? Because, well, they want to convey the idea that lust for the woman, lust for the car, and you convey this sort of thing. And that's actually called image magic. And one of the things they do in lust, in love, is that the idea of taking one thing, a beautiful girl, clad in a bikini, selling toothpaste. If you use this toothpaste, you're going to get this girl. It doesn't matter if it's true. Or they take in the case of that. Or beef chunky guy, Axe haircut. If your guy's using Axe body rub, you're going to want to be all over him. The idea is that they're going to convey this idea of symbolic magic. And one of the things about image magic and symbolic magic, and there's a little bit of a difference between the two, but the difference between those two things is that in image magic is you take an image of something that you want and convey it across the board. Voodoo dolls is an image, and you put a person's face on it and you stick pins in it. That's symbolic magic, because you're asking for what is within to be without. What is as above, so below, so within, so without. It's kind of this idea of, if I want money, so you put $1 at an altar to hope to get more money. You throw pennies in a wishing well to get wishes. This is all the act. Now that is called symbolic magic. To do one thing to get something bigger or bolder. And you have to accept, if you believe in magic, you have to accept the universe has an intelligence that we may not understand. But it is intelligent, that it listens. The universe listens to you, and it will actually do what you ask. One of the most common things that you have is telephones. How many times have you thought about a friend, and then the phone rings and that's that friend at the other line? It's one of the most common examples, but everybody's had that kind of experience, it looks like. And so that's kind of making a connection. You thought of a friend, the telephone rings, you talk to a friend. The universe kind of listens. Somehow it triggered a switchboard that you didn't see. Or you said, I needed money. I need to make my rent. And suddenly a check comes in the mail that you didn't expect. You ask for it, it comes in, it happens. Ultimately, magic is only the act of asking the universe for what you want. And hopefully getting it. The difference between magic and a prayer is that magic, you're using your own will and asking the universe. A prayer is asking God. Deity. Male, female, it doesn't matter what type it is, but it's just asking that outside force. The biggest difference between magic and a prayer is that act of who's going to bring it into it. I believe in an intelligent universe. My universe is intelligent. It thinks. The planet itself has a database. People always laugh at me and say, we have a database on this planet. We've had a computer. The Earth acts like its own computer. What do you think all these dinosaur bones and fossils are for? Kind of a database, because it's telling us what's happened in the past. We know. Petrified wood. If you take petrified wood, we could tell you the weather of that tree. They're taking thin lines of this sort of thing, and they're able to actually tell you the weather of it. Tree rings on a tree, both petrified wood and regular wood. Tells us the weather. Tells us the conditions of it. So everything we do around here has an intelligence that we may not always perceive. Human beings are only one form of that intelligence. And if you can accept that we are one form of intelligence, we're an active force of intelligence. We are now a changing force of intelligence. We can actually change our environment. Something that's very different. Lots of the other creatures on the earth which have a great deal of intelligence don't actually change their environment. They have to adapt and survive. But they don't, a lot of them don't go actively out of it. Now that's not so much true as they think. Chimpanzees are starting to use tools. We're starting to find out a lot more primates are using more and more tools out there. So they're beginning to change their environment. I just read about 2 weeks ago, they found a thing about dolphins. They're now starting to think that dolphins actually have homes. That they actually move treasures. And they keep them in sort of like these little plates on the ocean floor that they protect. You know, little things. They didn't believe this for a long time, but they're now finding it out. They're also finding out that dolphins may actually be farming. They're keeping sharks out of certain areas of water where they get their food. They keep other predators out of their food areas. This is a relatively new discovery that they're making, that they're doing this. And we're able to do that because we're now recording more information. And understand, information is being recorded at a much greater pace than we ever have. In 1 year in the United States, 1 year on Earth today, we're accumulating information at a rate the human race had accumulated all the way up to last year. In 1 year. That's how much it is. We're talking about petabytes of information. But the Earth has always been gathering this information. Magic is one of those ways that we tap into a consciousness that is intelligent and that has knowledge. You hear about Akashic records. You hear about all of them. Akashic records. I don't know, how many of you have heard of Akashic records? Or
Akashic?
Akashic. I have a Chicago accent. I'm so sorry. Me and Mary Daly suffer from the same speech impediment, public education. But yes, Akashic records. And that is this idea that everything that has ever existed, everything that has ever been written, everything that has ever been thought is stored in this place that we can tap into. It's what psychics tend to use, claim to use. Ever dream of a book that you may not know? You ever dream of a book and reading a book? They say that you're touching the Akashic records. And so we have this ability to tap into this great energy. And so what happens is that eventually we want to control our environment. We're human beings. We can't help it. There is no such thing as a human being that doesn't try to control their environment to a small degree. Because every day we get dressed. Every day we go out and eat food. We do things to make sure we survive. We're not just sitting out in the woods somewhere, grubbing up, just hunting down our food with our bare hands and doing so. We're actually pretty ill-equipped to do that. We don't have any claws, our teeth are kind of blunt. Yeah, there's a lot more. If we didn't have our intelligence, we'd probably be a lot lower on the food chain. And at one time we were, that sort of thing. But in that process, we had to form communities. We had to find ways to cooperate. And one of the best ways to do so was through emotions. Emotions are the fire of the soul. Intelligence is the fire of the mind. And that is where your thought comes from. It's fire. Think of thought as fire in your mind. It burns. You have to get your thoughts out. You have to get it on paper. You have to talk about it. You have to think about it. Emotions are the fire of the soul. And that is what your passion is. And magic requires energy. Magic is focused energy. And one of the things about focused energy is that you got to know what it is. And love is that one emotion that we all crave. And in the old days, I'm meaning last year, before we even understood these sort of emotions, before psychologists came along, before psychiatrists came along, we knew about love. The two emotions we knew about love, and it's what they call its opposite, hate. Trust me, hate and love are not opposites. They're kindred. The opposite of love is emptiness. The opposite of love is disdain, disconsideration. Because It is the opposite of it. It means there's nothing there. Nothing. Because hate is a form of love. You so don't want this into your universe. You want to love your universe so much you want to remove this thing from the universe. They come from the same place in the heart. They come from the same place in the mind. So people always think love and we've been taught love and hate are the opposites, but they're not. They're both really powerful energy and fuel. And love and hate is a form of passion to despise somebody. You become entrenched with them. If you think about how you hate people, you don't stop thinking about them. You want to get back at them. You want to do something to them. Well, what is love? Love is you want to be with them. You want them in your life. You want to entertain them. So understand those strong emotions are there. In fact, the thing that's least like love, not knowing somebody's there, making them ghosts. So we have this sort of thing. So we have these strong emotions. Anger is another emotion, very tied into love. You did something to violate my rules. And how can I continue loving you if you're going to continue to violate my rules? In fact, the majority of our actions comes down to love. And all magic begins with one type of love. Self-love. You're going to hear this, and there's lots of people in the world who don't love themselves, who do go out and act and even behave as if they love other people. So self-love is not necessarily a requirement to love other people, but it's a requirement to enjoy it. Simply put, if you don't love yourself, at least a little bit, and I'm not talking about just, I'm not just talking about, oh, I'm a little heavy, or I don't like that mole on my face, or I don't like my haircut. We're talking, everybody's got some of those emotions, but if you don't like yourself, if you really think that you're not a good person, then it's going to be very hard for you to accept that somebody else can love you. A bond that's broken, one of the most important love relationships we get is that bond at birth. Within moments, a chemical reaction happens to the brains of the newborn. Have you ever heard about ducks following the first person they see? Mm-hmm. It's called bonding. It's called psychological bonding. It's called psychogenesis of the mind. It's the first thing out. And that little ducky goes, okay, that's my mother. It's a survival instinct, and I have to follow it. And if you take away the mother and put your human being there, what you do with osprey and all sorts of things, then the animal will say, this is the person I must depend on to survive. Love is all about depending on people to survive. When the baby is born, it smells, it tastes, though the taste buds aren't fully formed there. It smells, it tastes, even though it doesn't understand all these jumbles, it feels, and begins to form a saying, this is the person that's going to protect me. Now this is happening at a very low level. I mean, it doesn't even understand the baby doesn't even understand all this, but it makes that bond. And everybody says the bond between a child and its mother is magical. What happens in that relationship is going to reflect everything else. But again, what does all this have to do with magic? Well, how you feel tells you how your magic's going to work. Because ultimately, magic is about will. Okay? So, in order to be able to have love in the magical sense, love in a personal sense, utilizing magic either for yourself or for other people, you have to understand that these are emotions that you have, that they form very young, protective emotions, and then you learn to attach it to other things. And that's why there's so many definitions of love. There's the love of a candy bar. There's the love of a soda pop when the kid's young. There's the love of a toy. There's the love of a security blanket. There's the love of your best friend down the street. There's the love of the little boy and little girl that takes a bath with you. And we get all these sorts of relationships in our lives that we call love. But all of these pale in contextual to the one type of love that everybody keeps looking for. Soulmates. The one thing that makes you whole. Now, I'm not going to get into the sort of the idea that a man and a woman have to be together, or that it's two men that can be together, or two women, or even it's a whole group of people. I believe soulmates are people who make each other whole. And I don't think it just has to be a couple. I know a group of people who make themselves whole, and there's like 5 of them in this relationship. It's called polyamory. It means it's a group marriage. So when I talk about soulmates, I'm not talking about just necessarily being that. But when it happens, it's a collision of 2 forces, sometimes more, that come together and make themselves whole. But how do we get to there? Self-love. The will of the love, having that sort of thing. And you have to allow yourself to have it. You have to have the will for it. Okay. Having said that, how many people believe the number 1 thing that a witch is asked for is a love spell? Number 2, money. Money comes second to love. There are so many people who would rather love than to be rich. Would you believe that? America is a little worse than other countries. A lot more in Europe, love is above everything else. They're willing to die for love. Most people aren't willing to die for money. So you got this powerful force. How does it use it? Well, if you believe that love is sacred, I don't know how many people believe love's sacred. There's this sort of idea of sacred love. And that's one of the most powerful forces that have been sublimated in our modern society. Sacred love is the idea that love is blessed, that love is power. Today it's been sublimated almost exclusively to religion. The love of God, the love of Jesus Christ, and for people who are not of that persuasion, the love of, the gods of Hinduism, the love of the gods. And people kind of said that sacred love is only between me and God. But the Romans had temple prostitutes to represent a living form of God, a goddess. That was considered sacred love. Freely given, freely accepted. So understand that sacred love really means love so strong that you would give up your own life for it, that it means more than your own life for it. This is love so big that you would change your life for it. Love so deep into your soul that you cannot do anything but love. That is unconditional love. Now let's get to lust. Lust is a biochemical reaction in the body that says, I'm attracted to this person and I want to procreate. Base it is. We need to get together so that we can get together so that we can impregnate you. Because we have intelligence, it doesn't have to make sense that some of the love relationships we're making actually don't have anything to do with that. But deep down in the soul, that's what animals do. They have lust. They call animals are lusty creatures. Tigers, lions, everything else. They get smelling those pheromones, and they just want to do this thing, and they just want to and take it and just do it. And human beings have got the same reaction, but because we have all sorts of other higher intelligence brain components, we can have all sorts of relationships. But deep down, the body reacts in the same way. It gets excited. The breathing tightens up. The various body parts. We adults, our blood gets engorged into the nipples. Men and women both have that. And various body parts, you get engorged with it. And all of a sudden, you just have this overwhelming need to be together. And it could be with one person, it could be with a lot of people. There's orgies. You just need this sort of satisfaction. And the body has to know that it has compelled itself to do so. That the body has done its duty to try to create more children, to perpetuate the line. Because you have to understand, we're all immortal. Our cells are from an immortal entity. Regardless if you believe in creation or evolution, I don't care which one you believe, it's irrelevant to this point. But once it began, There's never been a dead person who gave birth to a live person. Never. Now, science is beginning to tamper with that. Right? Even when they take the cells out of a body, they have to be alive. They've never taken a dead cell. They've never taken dead eggs and dead sperm and put them together. Because it's always been alive, it is immortal. Now, the individual cells or the individual components, us, are not necessarily immortal. And it can die off. But every living thing is from an immortal entity that continues to perpetuate itself. And that we call Gaia inside the world of magic. Gaia has been an immortal entity. It keeps reproducing itself. It reproduces itself as trees, as human beings, as squirrels, some snakes, unfortunately, things that are less pleasant, like mosquitoes. But because everything has to be born from something else that was alive, once life began, life itself is eternal until it's interrupted. And if ever life ends on Earth, then that will be the death of all, life will be, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of love, that'll be the end of lust. Lust is all about the drive for life. Love is making life more comfortable, to make it better. So how do we get to love? Now, from a witch's point of view, I hate to say it, love is one of the biggest manipulative forces in the universe, both psychological and magical. I hate to say it, if somebody falls in love with you, right, you can get them to do things, can't you? How do we get there? From a witch's point of view, love is the emotion that is most wanted and the most dangerous. There's actually inside Wicca, just to give you an example of one religion, that you're not ever supposed to cast a love spell on an individual person. Now, there's a story of Russell. He's one of the owners of the Occult Bookstore many years ago. He had a person come in, when people came in, he says, "I would like a love potion." And he goes, "No, you don't." And he would go, "No, you don't." And he says, "Well, love potions are cheap. If you want one, really. But you want, here's a potion for confidence. Here's a potion of strength. Here's a potion of this. Oh, no, I want this person to fall in love with me." A love potion is a series of ingredients that are put together to change and really create a lust reaction. It's not there. It's to cause a lust reaction. Now, in the old days, they used all sorts of things. Hallucinogenic drugs, menstrual blood. If you get, and this is a very Strega thing, if you can get someone to taste your menstrual blood, they fall in love with you. All these things are supposed to get a reaction. I know, isn't that kind of, in modern society, that's kind of disgusting. But no, it's true. And Stregan witches will sometimes put a few drops of menstrual blood into spaghetti sauces. I actually know one who's done that, to bind her groups together. And there's a biochemical reaction when that happens. Now, in the spaghetti sauce, it actually breaks down, and it's more symbolic. But in fact, it gets that sense, your body picks it up. And it begins, your body reacts like similar to what it does with a virus. It picks it up and says, this is something we have in our system. And it has to decide if it's good or bad for its system. And if it's good for the system, what does it do? It says, if it's good for the system, it starts to hunt it down. And each individual has a distinct smell. Ask any dog. He knows it. And what happens is the body then suddenly picks it up and they look for the scent. You know, that sounds crazy, but it's a very sort of scientific answer. Now, people ask me all the time, but magic isn't science. Magic is science. Magic, everything that we have in our scientific world started out as magical subjective. And then becomes scientific objective. A little more than 100 years ago, if you went to your medicine woman, your healing woman, and said, I've got a terrible headache, she would go, okay, here, let me go to the willow tree and scrape the inside of the bark. Grind it down, and let me give you a pill of it, or give you a little bit of, put this in the water or your tea, and this should get rid of your headache. And the doctors went, that's ridiculous. What could possibly be doing that? A lot of people were upset about it. One reason why doctors got rid of witches and healing women, because they were competitors. Now we take that we take it every day. Aspirin, natural form of aspirin, is inside of willow bark. The inside of the willow bark is natural aspirin. So scientists then found it, distilled it, and give it to us now for all sorts of things. Headaches, help us with our heart, and that sort of thing. But it began as this sort of idea. And so we learned all these sort of things. So love is really about that sort of finding reaction. So when you hear about a love spell, it's really about getting a lust reaction, which forms you to say, I want this person, and then a bonding, and getting them to bond to you. And one of the things about a love spell, and that Russell used to say, says, well, once you start a love spell, you may not be able to do this. And he talks about one person who went crazy because they put a love spell on somebody and they wouldn't leave him alone. The person turned into a stalker. Think about it, because what happens is there's a bond that forms. Now, if you're okay with that, and there's lots of lesser ones that you can do so. There's a lot of lesser forms of that, different. It doesn't always happen, but it becomes that they become in love with you. And that sort of thing. And it's forced will. The other thing they say, if you want something more general, the universe is intelligent. One of the best ways of casting a love spell for yourself is to ask the universe to find you somebody. Now, is this magic or psychology? I'll explain. One of the things we do is we take a candle. Pink for romantic love, red for passionate love, and really red, well, we'll leave that to your imaginations. And you dress the candle. What I mean is that you move the candle, you take oil, and you basically take it and rub it on the outside of the candle. Clockwise for positive things, counterclockwise for negative things. Now, if you're in Australia, you do it the other way around. No, and actually they do. Actually, it's one of those things. But basically, if you see, and remember, you're allowed to write your own spells. It's the symbols that work for you, culturally, societally. If you think that, the other, and we have been taught left-hand path is dark. Right-hand path is good. And this is where our mindset is. If your mindset's different than that, go ahead and use what works for you. But you have to realize you have a lot of assumptions underneath there. So we tend to tell them clockwise. That's why we tell them to do so. You take that and you put the candle into some sort of holder. And you get ready for it. And then you get some incense. Rose incense is used, very popular. And you begin to burn the incense. Rose is the most common one for it because, again, it's a very strong scent. And why scent is important to all of this is that scent is the most powerful memory enhancement and draw out that we have. You will remember a smell before you will remember a vision. If you see something, you might not remember it. But if you smell something, believe it or not, it brings more memory to the surface than anything else. It's just one of those little scientific things they're finding out. So you're trying to get the universe to listen to you. You're trying to get your own mind to listen to you. And you light the rose incense, and you get the candle, you light it, and you says, if you want to make it more of a form of prayer, you can say, dear God, dear Goddess, dear whatever. Or you can say, I will find love. Let love find me. I will be open to love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. And you just can't keep repeating the word. I will bring love to me. I will be open to love. I will be open to love. And you burn the candle. You meditate it. And even if you say nothing more than, I will bring love to me. I am open to love. I am open to love. Allow the candle to burn down. Allow that energy to form. Imagine that energy coming inside you, the scent coming inside you, filling you up. Feel it filling your lungs and your heart, your body. Imagine it going down to the ground and reaching out through your hands. Imagine that you can feel this sort of energy moving through you. Imagine that it's coming out through your fingers to the top of your head. burns down, the incense, you just do it and you just go through your life. And then accept things that are happening. The number one thing that happens after people cast spells is they don't believe it can work. So you go down the street, suddenly you go to your job the next day and somebody bumps into you on the train and they go, I'm sorry. And they start a conversation with you. And you go, ooh, okay. And you go like that, but you tend to ignore that. That may have been the person that was for you. And I'm always, and we live in a very fearful society, don't we? We're always afraid of things that are happening. We're always afraid of the other people. So it's harder. But then suddenly, you meet somebody and you hit off, and you don't remember that you casted the spell, but you opened yourself up to it. It's like saying, I want to win the lottery, and then not buying a lottery ticket. Or worse, buying a lottery ticket and never checking it if it won. Believe it or not, there are lotteries in America where somebody's bought a ticket. They just had one roll over in Illinois about a year ago. It was a $7 million lottery. Somebody won it. And you have 1 year to claim it. And when they don't claim it, they put it back in the lottery pool. Can you imagine if you bought a lottery ticket for $7 million and never checked it? And all of a sudden, you didn't check it for whatever reason, you lost it or didn't check it, and all of a sudden, you go back and find out that this lottery ticket just spoiled? Be pretty upset, wouldn't you? But people do that with love all the time. Okay. People do this with, all the time. They go out and say, oh yeah, I'm open to it, and then kind of push it away. So, when you cast a spell, you need to be open to it. Now, lust. Lust is a different story. Lust is a power that women and men wield. And the better you can wield lust, the more you can have in your life. Lust is the passion that drives everything. Lust of money, lust. I'm not necessarily saying lust is a good thing. I'm just saying it is a thing. Lust for a car. Lust for objects. Lust for gold. You hear it all the time. In fact, our society preys upon our emotions of lust. And they call it love. eHarmony is the best example of selling lust in the name of love. They are trying to make, and if you ever see their process, it's a 27-page psychological test. And they're trying to match you up. And what they're hoping happens, and if you ever look at their commercials, you'll see this to be true. People who get married on eHarmony usually do so within a year of meeting each other. Lust is not sustainable over the long term. Lust is an immediate, strong, passionate energy. It comes on quick, it stays there for a little while, and then it fades. But if you have that, you can begin to build something else. Love, after the lust is gone, remains. Love is the emotion underneath it that says, I cannot imagine what my world would be like without this person. And if you've transferred it to an object, without that car, or with other things, it doesn't necessarily be. But in human being terms, I cannot imagine being without the person. Okay, that makes perfect sense to all of you. But lust is the driver to get you in that relationship. Most of the time. And that's what people are selling to you. You gotta remember, people are trying to get into your mind all the time. All the time. They're trying to eat into your mind. Commercials. Do you know why they show so many commercials so often? There's a 20-time rule. If you don't see something 20 times, you don't remember it. You shut it out. And now it's getting worse. So they want to make sure every time you turn around that you see a commercial. And they need to trigger it into your emotion because intellectually you know you don't need that caramel mocha latte at Starbucks. Your body doesn't really care too much if it's house coffee or that caramel mocha latte, except it loves the sugar. No, really lusts for the sugar. We say we love it, but we really lust for it. Right? But deep down, there isn't that much difference between a house coffee with cream and sugar and this other thing other than the way it's prepared. The way it's prepared makes you more lustful. Okay? You want it. And every day you live with this sort of desire. What's the difference between a Lexus and a Honda? Operationally, what's the difference? They both will take you wherever you want to go. But if you're in the back of a Lexus, you're going to want to have, you're better than everybody. But yet, it doesn't really do anything else more for you than, say, a tricycle with a motor. If you had a tricycle with a motor, you could do the same thing that you do with a fancy car. Motorcycles are another example. You hear about these sort of, this sort of thing. Because ultimately, these are symbols. So love and lust are about symbols as well. Can you hear about it? You hear the joke about men compensating for cars. Cars pick up women. Well, and the reason they say that is because if you show your big fancy car, that means you've got money. If you got money, you have security. If you have security, then they can afford you. You can live in a certain type of luxury. Now, these are all these messages we're getting across. And all these messages are being rammed into you every day. Everywhere you turn around, there's advertising. There's advertising in this room. Right now, you're seeing advertising. There's Hill's Brother Coffee over there with the nice big symbols and a red can. Because they want you to know that you're passionate. There's, these posters. Some of them aren't, some of them aren't, they're kind of symbolic to show us it. Not so much advertising in here. That's good. But everywhere you go, there's going to be advertising, and that is trying to get into your base emotions. So if you can control those types of thoughts in your head, then you can get better things. You can have more will. You can have what you want. Love in a magical world is about giving yourself so strongly to an idea, to a person, that you live with them, and then and forming a sort of what they call a magical partnership. My beloved is here, and unfortunately she's not feeling a little bit under the weather, but my beloved is here at the other end. And it was quite unexpected. This is not a relationship that we either one of us anticipated being in. In fact, we had a very exceptionally good platonic relationship for years. So there's not a lot of lust, there was not a lot of lust and everything else, and all of a sudden, just one day, it hit, and we've been together ever since. And that's about 2 years now. And what happened was, and for me, to talk about this, is that she did one thing in my life that was there. She called me on, she was the only person in my life that called me on my negative traits, let's call it. Tell me when I was bullshitting. You're bullshitting. You're full of crap. And very few people in my life will ever actually tell me that. And for me, that was something that I didn't have anyone in my life. That made me better, because I couldn't just put out a line out there. And so it made me more honest with her. That felt strong. That suddenly for me was an emotion I wanted to continue. I felt good. It felt great. And I wanted to continue that. And that's what love does. When you get into a good relationship, it makes both of you better because you've got strengths and weaknesses that match up. Working couples are like that. You hear about couples that make money working on it because they have traits that are common together. But you also hear the other term, opposites attract. Well, opposites attract in the sense that a positive and negative come together like a magnet. A negative side of a magnet cannot go to a negative side of a magnet. You learn that in science, right? You need that sort of thing. You need a positive side and a negative side. Because they're actually, opposites are not always, in the negative context, means to be so extreme that they cannot get along. In fact, sometimes you need opposites to make things work. So when you hear about opposites attract, it's about finding someone who has the traits that you don't have. If you're really strong and even aggressive, right, sometimes you don't need a partner that's equally as aggressive. In fact, you may want a partner involved with you, that isn't so aggressive. But if that person's thoughtful and thinks and says, honey, I don't think you should go yell at that person. You go, what do you mean? Think about it. Okay. Pull you back. And sort of things. But sometimes but you know, love's all sorts of crazy things, isn't it? That's why it's hard. But that's why they talk about opposites attract. Some people are very compatible. You know, they have very similar traits. That's because each of us are made up so differently. Now I'm going to ask you a quick question. Just give me just a very brief, because I don't want to put anyone who volunteers to do it, what you look for when you look for love. What is a rule of love that you have, that you're looking for? Are you looking, is it beauty? Is there inner beauty, physical beauty? How about you, sir? I'm going to pick on you, okay.
No, that's fine. Creativity. You know, being able to look at things and explore, and wanting to, you know, explore different aspects of life in general.
Now, is that something that you do yourself?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're looking for that compatibility.
Yes.
And see, and if you have that, then you can start building a better relationship,
Yeah.
because you share the things that you enjoy. Anyone else? How about you?
I look for like a mutual sense of loneliness.
Okay. And is that something that, as you said, a mutual sense of loneliness, so you're finding somebody that's also lonely. That's a really hard one.
Or like a
Yeah.
sort of the same understanding
Of how the world works, I mean?
of being alone.
Mm-hmm. That's a really hard one, because I'll tell you, that was a little bit harder. And I mean, I can understand what you're talking about. And what you really are saying is that somebody who can understand how you're feeling. Because you could have the sense. And that's a really loneliness is one of the hard ones, because that's what we're trying to fill with when we look for love. And what happens is that we tend to deal with self-love there. I hate, this is one of our opposites. I hate being by myself. Mary Ann there can handle it pretty well. She self-entertains. But yeah, it is that sort of sense of thing. So that's just, again, a mutual thing. And so that's kind of a mutual thing. Yeah, you look for that sort of compatibility, because you're looking for someone who has a depth of personality, a depth of understanding, and that's something we look for. Anyone else? What's you? Yes.
For inner beauty.
Okay, what do you mean by inner beauty? Matt?
Somebody who understands they're not gonna jump on anything. They're just gonna be like, okay, I get it, I understand everything you're talking about. Someone who like me, gentle, passionate.
Can I warn you about that?
Sure, why not?
Let me warn you about that. You gotta be very careful, because you also open yourself up to a lust reaction. Because if somebody agrees with you all the time, you're gonna feel lust for them, but you're gonna get bored with them at a time. You must have edges. You must have some sort of edge. You must have some sort of grip in there. You have to have occasional conflicts. Because you grow through conflict. Unfortunately, that's a human thing. But don't get somebody so opposite of that. But it's a good thing to want. I mean, you want somebody who understands you. What you're really saying is you want somebody who understands you and is willing to listen to you. Good. But if somebody agrees with you all the time, they're not really listening to you. That's very important. Because love words, because I believe in words are magic. They taught a course a long time ago. They found out a girl, if you told, there was a time, they teach classes, literally, was on a television show recently, pickup artist. The fame of a pickup artist is he uses words that people want to hear. Hearing and listening are the two most powerful tools inside love. Lust. Oops. See, I can get them apart. It's really easy to get those two mixed up. In love, listening and compassion are important. But in the pickup game, act like you're listening, listen to what they want to hear, and feed them the line. Okay? It's a really important thing to understand. Meaning, you've been drinking for a while, your guard is down a little bit, and let us say that I heard that you loved art. And I know enough about art to go ahead and say, I like Bach. Actually, have you seen the poster signs for Edward Munich? Would you like to go to the Art Institute with me and go take a look at that art piece? And you go, yeah. And you start to find this sort of instant rapport. Right? And and then all of a sudden you find yourself going home. Because your body's overridden. Somebody I could fall in love with. Your body's overreacted. Now it needs to fulfill that procreation because you found somebody else. Love turns to lust, lust turns to bad, and the pickup artist is based on that whole premise. Looking like the guy or the girl that you could go ahead and fall in love with. And then of course the next morning he turns out to be an ass, he doesn't really care about art, and you never see him again. And then you get hurt. And then you get mad. And then all of a sudden you cut yourself off from love. See, that's the whole big thing about all this. Now, love in the terms of magic. How do you use magic in love? There's a whole bunch of different ways. But the best way to do so is being open to love. And when you love somebody, it changes their lives. Love will change another person. You loving somebody changes their lives. It's a very powerful tool. Loving someone will change their life. Not always good, not always bad, it's just a thing. But if you love somebody and they know of it, then they have to acknowledge it. And if they don't acknowledge it, well, that's a problem. And that's when people go, well, you need to make them do it. And that's when the love potion comes out. That's when the love spell upon the person goes out. You say, universe, I want this person to notice me. And what do we do to do that? So in the witch world, we do all sorts of things. How about we use scents? Scent is old-fashioned. The problem with everybody thinks that witches just control like unseen forces. We control both unseen forces and seen forces. What they call psychological forces and subtle forces, meaning scent. Rose water, rose perfumes, Chanel No. 5 in modern society. We use these scents because these scents get into the person's things and says, I really like that scent. It triggers me some memory. You know, people joke about rubbing, there's an Arby's commercial that I love that rubs bacon. The girl carries around a sandwich of bacon. And every guy seems to go across the room because they have this positive association. So when you're looking for love, you need to find ways to bring magical energy into your life. And that's your passion, your heart singing. Then you bring in all their symbols of it. So what do you, when you sense it? Yes, I'm going to ask you.
What's that?
When you find what do you love in your life? If you were to suddenly see it, that you would go, oh, I love that color, or what is it? Do you have anything in particular that triggers a love response from you? Could be anything. Food?
Yeah, maybe.
If somebody gave you, if a guy cooked you a very good meal,
Yes.
that gets a love reaction, right? And you start looking at that person differently. And if that person cooks, there's another one. How many people like the color red? Red is the #1 thing, and believe it or not, it's the color of blood. It's the color of menstrual energy. It's a very primitive energy of passion. And what it is that blood and red has always been associated with blood, because those things that are dying love the best. The sweetest moment of a rose is when it begins to die. The sweetest, the World War II was the one that proved it the best. When did the baby boom begin? Right after we let off that nuclear bomb and it threatened the entirety of the human race. When men came back from war and did not want to talk about it, who wanted to bury what had happened in their hearts, they came back fiercely to love their wives, their girlfriends, and they wanted normalcy. Love, ultimately, is normalcy, safety, trigger of it, and they came and they raised the largest generation in the world, which is, I think everyone here is just below that thing, but then they, did it. And then what happened to the baby boomers? They became, did you know that the next generation right after them is one of the smallest generations proportionally in the history of the United States? It was the first generation not bigger than the generation that came before it. Up until that point, every generation was bigger than the last one, and then the baby boomers took it and threw it out the window and said, yes, we want lots of kids. Generation X is only 40 million people compared to the 85 million people for the baby boomers. because they could not form love relationships. They went off and the children, baby boomer children, were so focused on themselves in a lot of ways that they're having a hard time forming relationships. Divorces, broken families, abortions. Regardless of how you feel this way, Generation X became 40 million people. And this is one of the reasons we're having an economic crisis right now, because those people, because they don't have enough doctors. They don't have enough people to replace them. Love got broken. They didn't nurture it. Now, what happened last year? We had an economic boom. We didn't know we were about to hit a crisis. We had one of the biggest economic booms in history for a while. Last year, 4.2 million babies were born in the United States. The largest number of babies ever born in a year. Mini baby boom. They don't think there's going to be quite so many babies born next year. And what happened was people were really feeling good about themselves. And they were feeling comfortable and safe. And they went out and had babies. Only two times in our lives as a species do we have lots of babies. When we get very, very afraid and are very poor and very broke, and we need as many hands on the till you can. The small farm, third world farms, the third world countries. You don't know how many babies are going to survive. You need these sort of children to work the fields, that sort of thing. And when we feel very, very good. My life is in order. I think a baby would add to my life. Everywhere else kind of add, because we get into the sort of, maybe yes, maybe no, maybe I'll wait, maybe I won't. So when we're very wealthy, we tend to have babies, though not nearly as many babies. And when we're very poor and very afraid, we have a lot of babies, because we don't know how many are going to survive. In that time of war, the love response becomes a lot stronger. The lust responses have been worse, because we're afraid. So you have to recognize that. So love is also a reaction to fear. Sounds crazy, right? But how many times you hear, I'm afraid that I'm going to die alone. I'm going to be alone at the end of my life. So we look for love so we are not alone anymore. Loneliness. And we want children to take care of us. So these are the sort of things you have to understand. So in magic, being afraid is not acceptable. You have to conquer your fear. Making a relationship out of fear gets you into bad relationships. The abused woman and the abused man, trust me, it happens to men too. We don't talk about it because we have this macho culture. Stay in relationships because they're afraid that whatever they're going to leave, no matter how bad the relationship is, it's going to be worse if they leave it, because they'll be alone by themselves. And so they're willing to put up with almost anything. So, and then eventually at some point, a small number of those people go crazy. And they do all sorts of strange. Or worse, they let whatever happens to them happen to them. And they get themselves hurt so bad, someone else has to react. And love is about reacting, so that sort of thing. So, in magic, we use love to bind us and lust to control. Yes, lust is used as a controlling element. If you want to get a raise, you want to, you can ask for it. And you should put out ideas for it. I use raises a lot for my lessons because it's one of those things that everybody, because you have a dependence upon your job to make you money. The waitress that wants a tip, she starts mentioning a tip early. But also the waitress who tends to wear the shorter skirt or the better clothes, depending on the restaurant, tends to get better tips because they are looking like they're an object that you should be impressed with. That's a love reaction. That's a lust reaction. It's not really love so much as lust. That sort of. It's hard to explain that sometimes to people, but how often do you say? And rap culture is famous for this: to look good, have the bling on, that sort of thing. to look good, and you want to be dressed well, you want to do things and that sort of thing. It's because, well, they're peacocks. They're peacocking. And peacocking is a term for looking good, because you want to impress. If you want to get a better raise at work, you have to get sometimes the lust reaction. And you have to find out what they're lusting for. If it's more money, I can make better sales. If they want prestige, if you give me a raise, I'm going to help you look better to your boss. Find out what they want, and you begin to put it into action. Magic is all about controlling your environment, your will. And by controlling your will, what you look like, what you say, what you do, to be bold, to be brave, to the first ones, to be silent, know what to say and what not to say it, are all part of this. And so love spells are all about these things, and so are lust spells. And they're so intertwined, it's very hard to tell the difference. If you want to attract somebody, find out their favorite color. If you want to attract a particular person, find out their favorite color, their favorite scent. And you will see that they will come to you. Be complimentary. Match their tone. What do I mean by that? Person yells a lot, right? So they're yelling a lot. So when they talk to you, da, 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 yeah, I'm really loud. Wow, you're really loud. So am I. I talk really softly. Let me get close to you and talk to you softly too. And the most powerful tool of it is touch. Touch them. You want to make a sale? Touch the person. If you want to make an attachment? Touch. Because we have energy in our body that gets conveyed by touch, like it doesn't get conveyed anywhere else. Touch is really important. Massages, rubbing a person's shoulder. Now, in today's world, we've gotten very afraid of touch. Because, we got all these rules of sexual harassment and everything else. And they're there for good reason. I'm not going to argue against them. But they are kind of dehumanizing. They're alienating. And so that sort of thing. So touch is an important aspect of it. So when you're trying to draw love into you, you have to be open to it. But when you're going to try to find love particularly, you have to decide the type of person that you want. And start using your image magic to start conveying your attraction to that type of image.
This October, the world of pagan voices comes together in one global gathering, the Pagan World Congress. 5 days, over 100 hours, speakers, rituals, music, and town halls streamed across the world. Join the conversation, shape the future, be part of history. The Pagan World Congress, October 9th through 13th, 2025. Online at paganworld.co.